The story kicks off with a cute goddess using her powers to make things right for our hero. She says sorry for messing up his past life and wishes him all the best for the new life he is going to live. The hero boy doesn't seem to have a problem with that, so he steps into a portal to get reincarnated into another world. The skies are clear and the air is fresh as we see our hero in the middle of a forest. His name is revealed to be Konugi Rinneha, better known as Rinneha. He is shown to have lived a full life till the age of 94 back when he was in Earth, but now he is shown as a young boy in this fantasy world. We are still not sure if Rinneha will be able to recall any memories of his past life, but he does know that this world is not so different from Earth, apart from the freshness. Anyway, he decides to continue with his journey and he is shown to be in office clothes from Japan. Rinneha is still not sure as to how safe this new world is going to be, but then a screen pops up in front of him and shows his opening inventory. This obviously takes our hero by surprise, so he checks it out and finds a shinai sword inside it. He figures that he can store his weapons in this screen. And then he also learns about the artifacts of this world. As he learns about the various aspects of this fantasy world, Rinneha realizes that his current body is quite useful. Now, he dresses up almost as if he is a samurai warrior, but is still unable to understand why he has been given a shinai as his starting weapon. He takes a look at the screen and it shows a message from the cute goddess. She says that she wanted to give him a proper sword, but the other angels were against it since Rinneha was good at kendo in his past life. Keeping this in mind, the goddess decided to give him the shinai sword. It's not like Rinneha has a problem with this, so he decides to go ahead with his new journey, although he must first find people who can point him to the right direction. After all, he needs to survive in this world, so he will have to learn as much as he can about it. Of course, it would have been better if the cute goddess had dropped him off at a better location, so our hero laments his luck. He has two paths ahead of him, but he doesn't know whether he should take a right or a left. With no other option, Rinneha decides to do things the old-fashioned way, and he uses a twig to put him on the right path. Suddenly, he hears a loud scream and he wonders if it was a cry for help. He has no time to waste, so he rushes to the scene where we see a couple of cute girls in a situation that is not at all cute by any stretch of imagination. They are cornered by a whole bunch of shady men whose intrusive thoughts can be seen clearly on their faces. The girls' names are revealed to be Shin the Femme Fatale and Rona the Chevalier. The girls might be curvy, but they warn the shady men from trying anything funny. That kind of threat would obviously never work on such men, so they simply tease the girls and ask them to come out and play. It looks like things might get a bit tricky for Shin and Rona, but it's at this very moment when our hero comes to the scene to save them from danger. He calls out the men for being shameless because there are so many of them who are trying to bully only two cute girls. Shin and Rona are shocked to hear this, so Rinneha wonders if they even understood what he just said. This is a new world after all, so it could be possible that the people here don't speak his language. Rinneha is at a loss for words because he doesn't know how he'll be able to interrogate the goons later. As expected, the bad guys have no intention of backing down, so they ask our hero who he really is. This is meant as a threat, but Rinneha is just glad that the people of this world can speak his language. Shin calls out to Rinneha and asks him to get out of here as soon as he can. It doesn't matter how strong he might think he is, because the girls believe he still won't be able to match the goons. This is due to the fact that they are actually soldiers from the mercenary kingdom, so they're a lot tougher than the other soldiers of this world. The girls genuinely urge our hero to leave them alone, and even the leader of the goons tells him to run away while he can still save his face. However, Rinneha says that he can't run away in this situation because that would mean he's not a man. The goons don't seem to get his morals, as they mistake his behavior to be that of jealousy. Seeing this, the leader of the goons offers to give Rinneha a session with Shin and Rona if he lets his men do shady things to them in peace. As a matter of fact, he goes on to say that he thought Rinneha was going to play hero with his little stick. He also says that a fight between them would be over the moment he'd hold onto the stick. This awakens some kind of beast in our hero, because he has clearly gotten over to the dark side after hearing what the goon leader said. Rinneha gives his enemies an angry stare and even goes on to challenge them with his shinai stick. The goon repeats once again that the match would be over the moment he touched the sword, so Rinneha decides to mock him for a bit. He shows his shinai sword to the goons, and in addition, he tells him that he can grab his stick for as many times as he'd like. However, in return, he would like to have the honor of beating the whole gang one by one. Obviously, the gang leader thinks that Rinneha has lost his mind, so he openly mocks him and goes on to grab his shinai sword. He looks at our hero with ego and asks him if he's going to beat up the whole gang now, so this is Rinneha's cue to show us what he's really made of. He uses his sword to land a direct hit on the leader's neck, which shocks everyone around him. It only takes him 1 second to send the leader flying away till he crashes to the ground. As his opponent tries to recover from the blow, Shin and Rona watch on in amazement as Rinneha strikes a pose and offers to give some advice to the shady goons around him. Naturally, they're not in the mood to listen, so they approach Rinneha one after the other to teach him a lesson. They clearly haven't learned their lesson as our hero strikes them down with his shinai sword using minimal effort. As he continues to send goons flying away, Rinya tells his enemies that he's not using a shinai, but rather a sword that can do just as much damage as a katana. Even so, the other goons circle around him to make sure he has no way out. They threaten to end his life, but Rinya doesn't get bothered by idle talk. Instead, he warns them against entering his attack range. And then he proceeds to whack them all with ease. He takes his time and beats down one goon after the other, almost as if they're waiting in line to get smacked by his shinai sword. Even then, the enemies refuse to back down and keep coming at our hero, hoping to wear him down with their numbers. However, Rinya is way too overpowered for such basic fighters, so he eventually defeats all of them and stands tall as the victor. The girls watch him with dreamy eyes because they have never seen such a skilled fighter before. Now, Rinya puts his sword back inside and mocks the goons for not using their brains in battle. He reminds them that even though his shinai stick may look harmless, it is still a capable weapon which can cause dangerous injuries. The reason he calls it a sword is because his thrusting techniques are way too good for someone of his age. The fact that he's using such methods means that he's not here to mess around. Rinya decides to take his leave, but Rona and Shin thank him for helping them out. Of course, he tells them that it wasn't too much of a hassle for him, and he feels that he might have actually interfered with them. But Rona tells him that she and Shin would not have been able to save themselves against the goons. Our hero realizes that his enemies had shady intentions for these cute girls. But it's best for him to end this chat before his own intrusive thoughts come into play. Even Shin bows down to him to show her gratitude, but Rini is not able to understand how these girls with swords would have faced issues against men who don't even have any weapons on them. That's when the girls reveal that our hero just took down a whole gang of soldiers from the mercenary kingdom, and they are known for their grappling techniques. This means that they're quite a handful even if they're fighting with their bare hands. Rinya is surprised to learn this, but Shin is even more shocked to see that he does not know of the mercenary kingdom. The warrior girl calls our hero strange for being unaware, so he becomes a bit awkward and explains that he's somewhat lost over here. Rona says that she's heard of lost people coming to this forest before, but this is the first time she's met someone like that. Shin figures what the scene is, and now the girls introduce themselves to our hero. Rona explains that she's a monk apprentice and Shin reveals that she's a samurai girl. Rinya also gives them his name, but they don't seem to have ever heard such a name before. Anyway, the trio decides it's best to get out of here now because the goons will only be knocked out for a while. They don't want any trouble when they wake up again, so they decide to leave the forest. Rinya feels bad for his enemies, so he asks the girls if it's alright to just leave them lying here. Rona explains that it's hard for anyone to survive for more than 10 minutes in this forest. But that's just how things are over here. The monk girl decides to elaborate a bit and explains that this world is called Eredora. It is split into 5 continents named East, West, North, South, and Central. Currently, they are in the Middle Eastern side of the continents where all the humans live. If they move further west, then they will reach the Mesematic Forest, which is close to the demon's territory. Due to this, the forest has become a monster treasure house. This actually makes Rinya realize that 10 minutes is all it takes for the monsters to show up and make a meal out of him. On top of that, he just ended the lives of 2 enemy goons without even breaking a sweat, so he wonders what kind of life he had lived back when he was on Earth. Rona asks our hero for how long he's been in this world, and he says that he's only just arrived. This amazes Rona. And Shin explains that lost people are usually very confused when they come into this world. Rinya, however, was not only calm, but was also able to take down a whole gang of skilled warriors. She also refers to Rona as Ro, which confuses our hero, but then the monk girl explains that it's a cute nickname which only those who are close to her can use. She stares at Rinya with some kind of intent, and he panics for a bit because his intrusive thoughts seem to be setting in. He manages to gather his composure, and then he asks Rona why she and Shin are over here. The girls chuckle and state that they are adventurers who from the Guild of the Trident area. The reason they're here is because they had received a request to investigate and end the Goblin settlement in this forest. Rinya is surprised to hear this, but then he learns that there's been a recent increase in reports of Goblin attacks, especially on the developing villages located in the outskirts of the forest. It turns out that goblins are not very strong when alone, but can be a huge problem if they come together in groups. Of course, this needs to be solved, but our hero is a bit worried to see that only Shin and Rona have been chosen to solve the problem. He does not have faith in the cute girls because they couldn't even deal with the mercenary soldiers. It is here where we learn that the girls were actually part of an 8-member team, but then things went downhill from there. It doesn't take long for Rinya to figure out that the other 6 members ended up defecting to the mercenary soldiers as this was the plan right from the start. Our hero states that the mission was a disaster right from the start, and Shin agrees with him in anger. Anyway, Rona tells Rinya that he should not stop at the base of the village, but he should rather head to the principality by using a horse carriage which will arrive in 2 days. All of this is fine, but then our hero asks the girls what they are going to do now. Shin simply replies by saying they will be staying in the forest and moving forward with their investigation on the goblins. Naturally, this shocks Rinia, but Rona says that they should at least try to gather some information about them. It may be true that the girls won't be able to subdue the goblins, but they can't really go back to the guild unless they have something of value. Despite this, Rinia states that what they're trying to do is next to impossible. The girls may be curvy and cute, but they also have a job to do, and they won't be able to find work if they just abandon this mission. On top of that, they will also be mocked and looked down upon by everyone else because it's very possible that the goblin damage can expand to other villagers as well. It's a tricky situation for Shin and Rona, but Rinia doesn't want to leave such cute girls alone without any protection. He gives it some thought and decides to join the girls on their mission. This shocks both Shin and Rona, because Rinia will not be given any prize money for his actions since he is not part of the guild. It doesn't sound like a fair deal, but our hero is fine with it as long as the girls give him information about this world. Shin has no problems with that at all, but she feels that it's too cheap a price to ask for risking his life. Rinia explains to her that he would much rather get this information because he does not know anything about the fantasy world that he's in right now. So, he considers this knowledge to be more valuable than money. Shin is a bit confused to hear this, but she gets what he means. Rona acts cute and winks at Shin while vouching for Rinia and his character. The samurai girl agrees with the monk girl, and then they take our hero on a new journey ahead. The trio walks for a while, and then they reach a small village which is where Shin and Rona are from. Of course, size doesn't matter to these cute girls because they've grown up in this village and they have fond memories here. Rona is also pleased that Shin is a bit calm after the fight against the mercenary soldiers. This is because the samurai girl is not very good with men in general. The girls take a look at our hero and assume that he is the same age as them as he looks young. However, they do not know that Rinia is actually an old man who's 94 years old. Obviously, the girls will never believe this even if Rinia said it openly, so he simply nods along to their words. This gets our hero thinking if he was some kind of odd man in his previous life, which might be the reason why he was reincarnated like this in his second life. We see Shin talking to a villager, but then the scene abruptly shifts to the cute goddess who seems to be celebrating the fact that Rinia has won the chance to reincarnate in another world. As expected, this is a flashback, and our hero is a bit shocked to hear what the goddess is telling him. She seems to be presumptuous and she asks Rinia why he isn't happy about it. She eventually just randomly believes that Rinia is enjoying his reincarnation and says he's welcome even though he never thanked her. Now, the goddess tells her cute angels to start singing their songs so that they can bless Rinia. All of this is very confusing for our hero, so she tells him that he had lived till the ripe old age of 94. She also states that he suffers from amnesia, but the most worrying part is that he never had a girlfriend throughout his entire life. This offends Rinia, but the problem is that he's too old, so he starts saying things that don't even make any sense. It's quite a problem to deal with old people, and this is something that Rinia says himself. The cute goddess now explains to him that he will have all the knowledge he gained from Earth and can use it in his new fantasy world. On top of that, he will also have the body of a boy who's 18 years old. It's actually very convenient for him, but since he's too old to figure any of this out, he doesn't get what she's saying. The cute goddess decides to have some fun after reincarnating Rinia as a young boy, so she asks him if he's feeling better now that he's not an old man anymore. This doesn't go the way she had expected it to, because our hero smacks her away for making fun of him. The goddess is sent flying into the air, and Rinia scolds her for talking about him without getting his permission. He finds the goddess annoying even as she tries to recover from his attack. He wants to know where he is, but the goddess tells him he doesn't need to worry about it. She goes on to explain that he is God's domain, and in this realm, there are no humans, but only cute angels. As far as she is concerned, she is the one and only beautiful goddess of this domain, and she strikes a pose while claiming to be the creator of all things. Of course, Rinia would never believe that a woman can be a god, so she is shocked to see how calm and composed he is even after being told who she is. Anyway, she tells him that from this moment forward, he is going to be reincarnated in another world where he can start living his second life. Rinia has no idea why he is being sent to a fantasy land, so he asks the goddess for a reason. She simply says that he's a chosen soul, which is why he's being given this honor. Luckily, she goes on to state that they are currently beyond the walls of the world. There are only a few spirits that can pass on to the other worlds, and Rinia's soul happened to be one of them. Since the walls are important to show where the spirit ends up going, our hero was given a chance at a second life because his soul had bounced up from the wall. Since he had the strength to withstand the power of the wall, Rinia has been chosen to lead this new life. To top this off, the goddess states that our hero is only one out of almost 6 million people who gets chosen as a new hero. His spirit, thoughts, and body get cleared for transport, and it's time for him to travel to the target world. The goddess offers him her hand, but Renia says that he'll only listen to her story for the time being. Now, he asks her what she'll do to him if his soul does manage to get transferred to the other world, but the goddess simply says that she will do nothing. It leads to an awkward pause, and then Renia erupts with rage, after which he grabs her head because he thinks the goddess is just playing with him as if he is her now boy toy. The goddess tries to say that he is not the only one who has reincarnated in this world, and there's another reason for him being sent here. Of course, she asks him to let go of her head because it's too funny for a goddess to be threatened like this. This is not helping, because Renia believes that he has lived a very happy life for 94 years, but now he has to be a new person and live a new life. He does not want to do this, and wonders what would be a good way to redo his sins. The goddess tries to calm him down and asks for a moment to explain herself. She goes on to say that she would like to give Renia resources for his new world, but he does not get what she means by this. The goddess further elaborates that everything in this new world is made up of resources, whether it's water, air, or even the souls of men. The name of this world is Eldora, and the problem it's facing is that the resources are running low. She also reveals that Eldora consists of dragon tamers, demons, humans, elves, and beasts. There are boundaries between the continents, as was mentioned earlier by Shin as well. The problem here is that people are crossing these boundaries and attacking other races more often nowadays. Each section has an administrator who's treated like a god, but they prefer to control their subjects like puppets. Renia has had enough of this boring lecture, so he grabs the goddess by her head and tells her to show the world immediately. The goddess feels like her head is about to crack open, so she begs Renia to stop, and he only does so because of her tone. The goddess is amazed that our hero is so savage, and her head hurts badly now. Anyway, she had reincarnated 5 other people before Renia, and they happen to be the commanders of the 5 different boundaries. Renia only wants to know if they are weaker than the goddess, because if that's true, then he's sure that he can beat them. The point is that the goddess can take away their control rights as and when she pleases. She can also wait till a majority of the land they're living in gets destroyed by a tragic incident. Come to think of it, she can do it right now and get it over with, but Renia tells her not to destroy the world because of a hunch. He still doesn't understand how this ties into the shortage of resources, so the goddess decides to give him a much clearer picture. It turns out that there is a recycling process of reincarnation in this world, where the soul is called the linus. So, if a person is ended in battle, then his soul will get reincarnated, whether it's because he was eaten by a dragon, or even by the orcs and goblins. Honestly, the goddess would be quite livid with herself if she were to be defeated by beings as useless as goblins. But the main thing is that one can come back to life if they wanted to get back at these beings. The problem now is that a lot of souls are coming to the goddess, but none of them want to reincarnate. She wanted to transfer these souls to another world, but the resources of Eldora are just too low to ignore now. She even tried tempting the dead souls with benefits to aid her, but these efforts did not succeed. The goddess was able to convince the 5 commanders to join Eldora, but this is not enough, as she wants to take this world towards a better direction. This is a process that takes time, which is why she has asked these commanders to buy as much time as possible to keep this world safe. The goddess wants Renia to help her out by saving this world so that she can keep it safe and help the people over there lead better lives. Our hero has understood what the goddess wants, but he doesn't want to do it because the problem does not appeal to him. This pushes the goddess to launch herself at Renia and beg him not to say such things. After all, he is all she has to rely on. The goddess shows her cute form and asks our hero to think about all the innocent women and children of Eldora who are counting on him to save their world and their lives. It leads to another awkward silence, but Renia has had enough of these games, so he demands to know the truth. The goddess jokes by saying she had tried to convince almost 6 million people to help her out, but she ended up choosing Renia because he was useless. Naturally, this angers him, so he grabs her by the head once again. The goddess begs for mercy and he lets her go, but Renia has another important question to ask. If she has the powers of a god, then why is she not helping these people instead? She goes on to say that since she is a goddess, she has way too much power to meddle in a simple war. She can send people flying just by touching them with the tips of her fingers. Apparently, even monsters think that she plays the game with cheat skills, and the world could be destroyed if she got in between. There's no way Renia believes this because he is making her cry just by holding her head. Anyway, the goddess offers him unlimited power, but he doesn't want to rule the world. Besides, he doesn't have any resources, so he would only end up taking more than giving to Eldora. The goddess figures he's right, and the conversation takes yet another turn when she tells our hero that the food on Eldora is much better than the food on Earth. She goes on to give him a whole lecture on how he should leave his past behind and focus on enjoying the finer things in life, or rather, his second life. This chat has been going on for way too long, but Renia is happy to hear about the gourmet food because he was into gastronomy in his past life. The goddess is pleased to hear this, but our hero tells her this isn't enough. As a matter of fact, he will need more than just tasty food to get the job done. Renia will need some cheat skills to save the world, but at the same time, he does not want to be overpowered to the point where he can take over Eldora. The goddess agrees with this, and then our hero says that he will need a revival power so that he can come back to life if things were to ever go wrong. The goddess reassures him that he will not have to worry if he gets ended during his mission. After some consideration and thought, she states that she will grant him the power of revival and tries to flex the fact that she is a goddess once again, but to no response from Renia. With that, she asks our hero what other kind of cheat skill he wants, and this puts a smile on his face, almost as if his intrusive thoughts are kicking in again. It's at this point where we are taken back to the present where Renia is dreaming about his chat with the goddess. Shin is calling out to him again and again, and she asks him if he even heard what she was saying all this time. He asks what's wrong, so the samurai girl explains that he can't just doze off whenever he likes, even if he is in a pioneer village like hers. Renia apologizes for his actions and asks Shin to repeat what she was saying. The samurai girl then goes on to explain that goblins are very dangerous together, so the only way to tackle them is with a strong weapon. Basically, the girls want Renia to upgrade his weapon, but he says that he sees the shinai as his personal sword. That's exactly why Shin wants him to change it, because it apparently gives off a dangerous feeling. The samurai girl could even sense this back when Renia was fighting the mercenary soldiers. She talks about her ancestor who had advised her to take an actual sword to the battlefield if the girls want to win the battle. This would allow her to live long and get the job done. While the same cannot be said for our hero, Shin worries that if Renia takes his shinai sword to fight the goblins, then he will eventually run out of breath while fighting them. As a matter of fact, his shinai sword could also break in the middle of the battle, and that would be very bad news for him. Despite these warnings, Rona tells Shin that Renia is still going to use the sword that he is carrying. The monk girl also says that there shouldn't be a problem in using the shinai sword as long as Renia knows how to fight with it. Basically, if our hero can slash with this sword, then he should be able to fight as well, which would make life a lot easier for the girls. There's another reason for this conversation, and that's because the defeated mercenary soldiers did not even have any useful weapons on them. All they did was rob the girls of their money, and they only left behind some smelly bags. This makes Shin and Rona make fun of the mercenary soldiers, even though they were the ones at their mercy not too long ago. The girls may be cute and curvy, but their words are blunt and nasty, so our hero prays to God to keep him safe. After all, he does not want to be caught up with his intrusive thoughts, especially since it looks like these girls are not too fond of men. Now, Shin comes to the conclusion that she will give her backup weapon to Renia, so that he can use it in battle. Rona doesn't have much to say on the matter, but at least Renia won't have a problem the next time he's lost. With that, our hero takes a look at Shin's sword and assesses it to see if it's any good. The girls want to know his opinion on the sword, so he says that it looks alright. Renia notices that this has the sharpness of a Japanese sword, but the problem is that he feels like thrusting his weapon rather than cutting and swinging it. He takes a look at the handle and Shin states that it is an expensive section of the weapon. She reveals that the handle is actually the only original part of the sword, because the blade has been broken and replaced way too many times. She says sorry for giving such a sword to Renia, but our hero says it's fine because a sword is a sword at the end of the day. With that, he accepts Shin's spare weapon and gets ready for the goblins. But first he puts the sword away in his void storage. The girls are shocked to see this and comment on how jealous they are of their savior for having such a skill. Shin wants to know how Renia will get the weapon back, but he doesn't get her question, so he simply says that he'll take it out of the storage when he'll need it again. The samurai girl knows what void storage is, so she asks Renia how he has such a rare skill. Rona also says that she's heard the number of items you can store using this power is unlimited. This actually makes her jealous because she has to carry a lot of luggage with handheld items. Of course, our hero is not one to back down from helping a cute girl, so he says that he can carry the girl's luggage on the way home. Shin and Rona are glad to hear this and they thank him for his offer. Now that everything is cleared, it's time to go out and take on those goblins. But there's no time to breathe easy because Renia senses something odd. He takes a look outside the window to see if anything is there, so the girls ask him if everything is fine. Aur is unsure about this, but he can sense something coming from the forest. The samurai girl asks him if this is the ability of people who are lost, but Renia states that it could just be the enemy making their move. He looks out for a bit longer, but can't see anything, so he decides to leave it be for now. However, Shin looks at Rona and asks her to do her thing, following which the monk girl starts chanting a spell. She glows just like a holy girl, and then she uses her powers to identify the enemies who are in hiding. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy takes over her curvy body and she launches a string of waves all over the surrounding area. It doesn't take long for Rona to figure that there is something with hostility hiding inside the forest. Also, it's not just one being, but rather a lot of them, as Rona is still unsure of the count. More than that, even if she's looking at beings outside her range, it seems as if there are way too many monsters outside. Renia is only looking at Rona's glowing body and her curves. But he can't let his intrusive thoughts take over, so he asks Shin what's happening with the monk girl. She explains that what Rona is doing is called exploration, which is a skill given to those who serve God as their own law. Basically, this skill allows Rona to scan the area and warn her friends of any danger nearby. The problem, though, is that there are over 50 monsters coming for the trio, which is a lot more than the girls had expected. We learn that the monsters in question are none other than the goblins. And since they're in a group, things are going to get very intense. The fact that so many of them have come together probably means that they want to take over the village, which is bad news for the girls, given the size of the horde. There must be a commander as well, which means that they will have to deal with the goblin leader. Just the thought of facing off against such an overpowered monster makes Shin panic, so she turns to Rona and asks her to gather everyone in the village. She needs to send a message stating that the women and children need to run away and hide, while the men should all hurry up and prepare for an attack. It looks like luck hasn't been on her side today, but Shin can't do anything about it, so she asks Renia if he would like to help her right now. Of course, our hero says yes, because he can't leave such cute girls in a situation like this. He asks how he can be of assistance, so the samurai girl tells him that his enemies will be full of fighting spirit and will also have weapons on them. Despite such a scene, the military will not come to help them, so they're all on their own. On top of that, the leader goblin is many levels above the normal goblins, so taking him down is going to be a huge pain. Obviously, this means that the trio will need as many men as they can possibly get to fight against these goblins. However, there are only 10 men in this village who can be considered good enough to fight against goblins. Women and children will need to hide, so Rona calls out to the men who can fight to come down to the battle zone immediately. The numbers are far worse than they had imagined, and the goblins are too dangerous to handle, so the monk girl maintains that only the brave men should fight on the front lines. Shin looks at our hero and honestly confesses that this is going to be a tough battle, especially with the overwhelming difference in numbers. He asks her what will happen if they lose, but she doesn't even want to think about it, because the goblins will do all kinds of unspeakable things to her and all the other curvy girls of the village. As a matter of fact, it looks like Renia might just see everyone getting ended in front of his eyes, which is not a good thing for our hero. He remembers what the goddess told him about not ending his soul, because if he does that, he won't remember what happened to him when he comes back to his senses. This is a tricky situation, but Renia jokes that it is going to be a fun fight. Of course, Shin doesn't like this kind of talk, because it's not a funny scene. Renia simply says that this is going to be an easy fight since he's doing it for those who are at a disadvantage. Our hero flips over to the dark side and gives off a shady smile, which makes Shin a bit concerned. She wants to know why he's laughing, but it looks like he's already anticipating his big fight against the goblin army. The monsters charge towards our hero as we learn that they like to attack after sunset. The feeling of evil continues to grow from inside the forest, so Renia expects this to be an interesting battle. Now, he takes a look at his own team, which is led by Rona and Shin, but there isn't much to brag about. Basically, there are only 12 men with weapons, 2 warrior girls, and our very own Renia himself. In comparison, they're up against 50 goblins, but that number can increase to 100, and to top it off, the goblin leader is there as well. Renia figures that his team will have to be very desperate if they want to win despite such a huge difference. Shin is unable to keep herself calm right now, so she asks our hero if he is used to such fights. He doesn't seem to know this because he can't recall anything from his past life. However, Renia does know that he is going to win this fight because he has the faith to pull it off. The girls are amazed to see this much confidence in their leader, so they tell him that they're going to be counting on him to lead the way for them. With that, Renia and the girls prepare for what is going to be an uphill task. Suddenly, an army of arrows are fired at the team, and they are under attack right from the start. Renia takes a look at the massive horde of goblins in front of him, and he figures that the battle is not going to be as easy as he thought it would be. Shin instantly tells the men that this is going to be a fierce fight, so she orders the men to fire their bows and arrows as quickly as they can. They try to do their best, but it isn't good enough and the village men mess up the whole thing. With none of the arrows landing on the targets, the goblins decide to move forward and conquer the village. The samurai girl laments the current state of things, because the village men are clearly not prepared for a battle like this. Things are not looking good for the team. So Shin says that they will need to keep attacking the goblins if they are to have a chance. She figures that she should also join in on the fight, but Renia simply laughs and takes this as a chance to charge straight into the enemy. The samurai girl has no idea what he means by this, but our hero doesn't bother to listen to her and he enters the enemy territory. The goblins are all shown to be laughing, probably because they know they have the upper hand. But Rin'ya changes that in no time when he unleashes his sword upon the monsters. What follows is an absolutely brutal display of our hero slashing through the goblin army with ease. The monsters have no idea why he's so strong, but Rin'ya simply says that he's getting charged up by seeing the goblins laugh and enjoy themselves. He wants to laugh and enjoy as well, which is why he's gone on an attacking spree with no mercy at all. The goblins have had enough of these fun and games, so they launch at Rin'ya hoping to end him. The battle continues with rage, but Shin does not understand why Rin'ya would go directly into the battleground without any plan of attack. It's not a very smart move according to her. But then Rona tells the samurai girl that the goblins are coming in from the other side as well. This isn't good news for the girls, so they need to come up with a plan of action. On the other hand, Rin'ya is shown to be having a lot of fun as he takes down the goblins one after the other without even breaking a sweat. He decides to pull out his shinai sword as well, because he wants to have fun during this battle. It seems all too easy for our hero, but then he stabs one of the goblins only to see it survive the blow. Rin'ya wonders why he wasn't able to pierce the heart of this monster, but none of that matters to him because he simply pummels it down with his shinai sword. Such a savage display makes the goblins worry. But our hero is not done with them just yet. He mocks the monsters and tells them that none of them will be missed after this fight. Rin'ya will make sure of this as he announces himself as their enemy and declares that his only goal is to have fun right now. With that, he launches an ultimate attack on the goblin army and starts counting his victims with each blow. Rin'ya is shown to be enjoying his furious display, and he continues to mock the goblins for being weak. He urges them to come at him, but the monsters have no idea what to do. We shift back to Shin and Rona, who are doing their best to defeat the goblins on their end. The curvy girls are shown to be very capable fighters, but even they start to struggle at one point. Shin refuses to give up and continues to slash the goblins, stating that she won't have to worry about the enemy if she simply ends them all. The samurai girl remembers what Rin'ya did to the mercenary soldiers, so she decides to use his thrusting technique on one of the goblins. It turns out to be very effective, and she's glad to have learned a new move, but her sword gets stuck in the goblin's tummy. Another goblin attacks her from behind and she has no way to defend herself, so it looks like Shin is going to take a direct hit. Luckily for her, Rona steps in and whacks the monster away to save her life. The monk girl comments that Shin needs to be a lot more careful if she wants to walk out of this battle alive. The samurai girl thanks Rona for saving her life, but she says that it's way too early to make such a comment. The girls get surrounded by a whole gang of goblins, and they figure that they need to survive this onslaught as well. Rona urges Shin to do her best, and then they begin their final attack. Meanwhile, Rin'ya is having the time of his life defeating the goblins with ease. However, his sword breaks into pieces and he wonders what to do now. A goblin attacks him and he decides to take it down, so he uses the handle of the sword and whatever's left of the blade to effect a win. He's not too happy with the sword that Shin has given him, but at least he was able to get the job done. It's time for the final boss to step into the battlefield, and he shows himself to the best fighter, who is Rin'ya without any doubt. Our hero takes a look at the giant beast and comments that the leader has finally come out to play. The goblin commander has a massive sword with him and he lets out a loud battle cry which alerts both Shin and Rona. The samurai girl worries for Rin'ya, so she asks him to leave the battlefield right now. The main problem is that his sword is broken, so he won't be able to match up to the overpowered monster. Shin offers to fight the leader once she's done with the other goblins, and she begs our hero to retreat as soon as possible. Of course, Rin'ya is not going to take orders from a woman, so he tells the samurai girl not to be silly. After all, she's not even done with her side of the goblins despite having Rona for assistance. With that in mind, there's no way she can take on the goblin leader, so it's all up to our hero to get the job done. He walks right at the monster, and it agitates him, so he launches his sword attack at Rin'ya. Our hero manages to dodge the attack with ease, and he realizes that his opponent is quite slow. He also notices that the goblin leader has an extended sword, which means that all his attacks will be heavy and slow. It's a simple case of physics as Rin'ya uses his brains to calculate the length and width of the sword coupled with the goblin leader's strength and force. He learns that even though the sword has a good range, the monster will have a problem attacking him from a horizontal angle. Keeping that in mind, he charges at the goblin leader and dodges his side swing. Rin'ya manages to reach the back of the monster and he knows that he has to strike now or never. It's about to be game over for the overpowered leader, but then Rin'ya sees that he has a normal goblin guarding him from behind. This goblin attacks our hero, but it's of no use as he takes it down with ease and proceeds to launch his sword into the goblin leader's back. The enemy screams in pain and tries to attack our hero, but he manages to pull out his sword and slam him to the ground. The Goblin leader is clueless as to what has just happened to him, but Rinneya doesn't give him any room to breathe and places his foot on top of his opponent. Our hero comments that the beast does not have any gear protecting his lower body, which is why he was able to take him down with ease. It's time for Rinneya to flip over to the dark side once again as he mocks the Goblin leader for having a useless sword. It might have been big, but it would not even be able to dent ice, so it's a huge waste of a weapon. Clearly, size doesn't matter as Rinneya's tiny, broken sword can still cut through things like flesh and bone. Our hero decides to give his opponent a live example by slashing through his neck and ending his life in savage fashion. The main threat has been taken down, but the battle is still not over, so Rinneya decides to have some fun with the giant blade left behind by the Goblin leader. He is still in his demon mode, so he shows us a shady smile and says that he would like to end this fight with his new toy, even though he thinks it's useless. The girls are still busy fighting off the other goblins, but soon they sense something odd. The goblins are panicking and there are body parts being flung everywhere. Rona and Shin can also hear the goblins gasping before they meet their end. On top of that, they can sense the feeling of being stabbed. These goblins are showing faces filled with terror and pain because they are up against Rinneya in demon mode. Our hero starts to look like a scary villain as he slashes through all the goblins and says he wants to end more of them. Even the monsters show fear in their face as Rinneya destroys them with a shady smile on his face. Soon enough, the battle comes to an end, and the dawn nears upon the girls. Rona asks Shin if she's still alive and she confirms it, but both the curvy girls have their clothes torn off due to the fight. The girls are just glad to have survived the goblin attack, and they only have our hero to thank for his impressive display. Rinneya has saved the girls yet again, and we get to see a brief flashback of how he was able to end all the goblins, but it looks like someone is watching his moves. It happens to be the cute goddess from before, and she laments the fact that Rinneya is ending all of these monsters with ease. She wonders if it was a good idea to erase all of our hero's memories from his past life, because there sure seems to be some kind of connection between him and these fighting abilities. With these skills, defeating 100 goblins is not much of a task for Rinneya, so we are taken to a flashback to explain how he became so strong. We pick up from the last flashback where the goddess had asked him what ability he wanted. Rinneya says that he wants health because he has been reborn with a new body. The goddess is confused to hear this, since it's not common for a man to ask for health over a new ability. She wants to know if he would like anything else, so Rinneya says that he wants a strong tummy along with a tolerance for drinks. This is because he is a fan of food and will need to satisfy his massive appetite. The cute goddess does not get why he's being like this, because it's rather selfish for him to be asking for such things. Rinneya orders her to be quiet, as looking cool will not help fill his belly. Now, Rinneya figures that he will need to pay for his food if he wants to eat so much of it, since this world will have a lot of fighting and magic. The goddess states that he will need some battle equipment for his task. That's when she remembers that Rinneya is very good with a sword, so he should be given one. However, our hero does not recall having this skill, which makes his past life even more suspicious than it was before. What exactly was Rinneya's past life before being reincarnated into this world? Is his demon mode going to be a problem for the cute goddess? Will he be able to act on his intrusive thoughts for the curvy Shin and Rona? Like, share, and subscribe if you liked this video. Hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload part 2. See you soon.